Oh, hey there. So, years ago, I heard a story and I thought it was very interesting and it stuck with me for decades. I heard a story and somebody said, imagine, if you will, that there's a rain cloud and it's right above the Continental Divide. Now, if you don't know what that is, it's the highest point in North America. Okay, so in the Rocky Mountains, there's a Continental Divide, and on one side, you've got, the East Coast, on the other side, you've got the West Coast. Now, imagine you're a rain cloud above that, and two raindrops fall from the same cloud, made of the same stuff, at the same time, inches apart. And one lands on one side of the mountain, and the other one lands on the other side of the mountain, okay? At first you're like, what's the big deal? There's almost no difference whatsoever. Now, let's pause right there. A lot of times people say, what's the difference between a Christian and a non-Christian? I mean, like, really, you eat the same food, you go to the same places, a lot of times your entertainment is the same. Oftentimes you look and you go, what's the big difference? But when these two raindrops fall and they're just inches apart, at first you're like, I don't see that big of a difference. But as time passes, and if there was no evaporation, then they would trickle down the mountains and they would get into streams and tributaries and rivers, and eventually one would end up in the Atlantic Ocean and one would end up in the Pacific Ocean, which is a completely different destiny, okay? And there are times in our life where we make decisions, and at the time we think, is it that big of a deal? But then once time passes, you're like, if you look back, you go, yeah, that was a pivotal moment in the history of my life. That changed the trajectory of my life right there. I know that there was a point when I was young that I decided to do drugs. My life changed in ways that I can't even explain to you. I don't know what kind of a person I would be if I had not done that, okay? Thank God that also my life changed back. I evaporated, if you will, and came back to the other side of the mountain because God gave me another chance. Now, there's not infinite chances, okay? But when he gave me another chance, that changed the trajectory of my life forever. If you knew me when I was 16 years old and you knew me now, you'd be like, now that's two different people. That's not the same person anymore. And as time goes on, I've known people for a very long time because I'm old. And those same people made the other decision, right? When I was like, hey, I've decided I'm gonna follow Jesus. Then they're like, I'm not. And I remember I had a friend that I was dealing drugs with, and he said, he pointed a sawed-off shotgun in my face that somebody had stolen from a cop. And he pointed at my face and he said, if you talk about this Jesus stuff anymore, I'm gonna kill you. And as time has passed, his life has been difficult. I've seen him again and again through the years. I think at this point in his life, he's doing better, at last I heard, which I'm very grateful for. We always have a second chance, sometimes a 50th chance. I wouldn't push that. But nevertheless, I remember seeing him, and I hadn't seen him for like 10 years or something like that. And we met at Home Depot, and I was like, oh man, how have you been? And he said, oh, I'm doing construction or whatever. I was like, oh, cool. What's the name of your company? He goes, oh, no, it's not my company. It's this other guy here. And I'm like, oh, that's fine. How's your life been? He goes, well, my wife left me and I'm a 10th time felon now. And, but he got shot in the back of the head. And he's like, but I didn't get caught on that one. I'm like, well, it's still, there are better outcomes. Okay. Now look, I love the guy. I won't say his name or anything like that. And I want the best for him, and I think that he has turned his life around at this point. But I remember thinking, yep, the raindrops, the farther you get, the more distinct it is. Like, you make a decision and you realize, like, this really does change everything. Make good decisions. Love you.